It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Namaste and welcome to the Divas That Care Network. I am your host, Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, our network is going into its 15th year and is listened to in over 30 countries. I'd like to personally thank you for giving me the gift of your time today, and it is always my honor to hold space with you. And today we are even more honored because we have a wonderful human being, yoga instructor, Reiki practitioner, mother, equine enthusiast, so many things are in alignment. My dear friend and neighbor, Sandy Roth, has come to join me, and we are going to delve into all of the things, including Reiki, yoga, and how to do a little bit of cleansing for your energy and your lifestyle, I hope. Let's dream big. So, Sandy, if you'd like to tell our listeners how you came upon Reiki and, yoga in your life and how you think it can help us, become our best selves and serve the greater good.
Well, that's great. Yes. Hi. So I guess chronologically, yoga came first and then Reiki came second, but I would always think that the idea of the Reiki and being empowering for healing was always there. I just wasn't in that particular format. Yoga was an extension of coming out of like running and a lot of exercise and just saying, there has to be something more that feeds me a little better than just repetitions. And yoga is a funny thing because you go in for a good stretch or you go in for your back pain that you want to heal, but it's pretty sneaky. It has these other doors that it opens up for you. And it says, wait a minute, yeah, sure, you can get that. But come over here and take a look at what we've got going for you here. And you can kind of start to clear out some of the stuff on the inside out and get your brain and your conscious awareness into a better alignment so that you feel a little more fulfilled and a little more nourished, more than just an exercise routine.
Yeah, it's the yoga rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. You go down and you everything's upside down.
It sucks you right in.
Absolutely. And then Reiki always realized that you can affect your well-being through intention. And but the Reiki itself was very nice in that some of the precepts of it is you can do no harm, it can only do good. The idea of doing it in a group, the Reiki shares, where everyone comes together and helps each other, was really enticing and felt very comfortable. Also, no matter what you do and offer, it goes through you, so you get too. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are so many other modalities, but this one just happened to speak to me. I'd had some Reiki done, and it felt like it was like the warmth and the almost burning of the. I said, "Boy, this is really something that I need to investigate," and then it fell into place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very powerful, I think, energetically. And so do you find that you enjoy, hands-on versus so a lot of the questions that I get when I'm working with people are like being in the room versus distance Reiki. Do you have a preference, or preference is kind of probably not even the correct word, but how do you feel, or does it depend best attuned to the energy or the space in the room? Or how do you feel you or your client get the best benefit, or the shares, for example, the people that you're working with?
When we
Do you,
started, of course, there was a lot of hands-on, and I was
yeah.
in the room with people, and in the Reiki shares, of course, we were all together. But as time went on, and as you get to different stage of Reiki, you get the distance symbol, and then all of a sudden you realize that time space does not exist, and it really doesn't matter where you are, and that just the intention um, uh, translates very well. I mean, it's always nice to be have someone there from a personal standpoint, but it really doesn't matter. There's a woman whose name is Lynn McTaggart. McTaggart, she's a journalist, and she wrote a book called The Field, as well as The Power of Eight. And she did a lot of studies, and she tried to do them more of the scientific studies, where she could affect the healing of not, they started out doing plants and seeds, very basic stuff, and then sort of gradually moved on to people, and they found that there's basically no difference whether you're with someone or whether you're apart, and it doesn't matter how far apart. The
It's all the
connection
energy.
goes very deep, more than just the physical. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I always say, because there's another a woman who I go on her podcast, and it's Robust Lifestyles on the same network. And I've done Reiki on her horses, and she's in Kansas. And I love working on her horses. And it's so cool for me, the way that you kind of get in so for horses, for example, if you're doing Reiki on a horse, like I've done Reiki on my own horse when he had his injury, and I'm sitting on a bucket and I have my hands around his hoof, and I'm like worried he's going to flinch or do something or kick me or the bucket, and you're just like, it's very hard for me to get into that like meditative receptive state around a large animal like that. But when I do distance healing on her horses, it's very different, because I have her be my eyes there and kind of take notes, and I get to just tap in and just be in a very meditative state and send the energy. And I will notice what's really cool is she'll say, oh, at this time this happened, and I'll say I was doing this, and that's been super eye-opening for me. And to what you're saying, to confirm that it doesn't matter if it's for me. I think actually with that kind of an animal, a large animal or any animal, the distance can actually be more beneficial, because you're able to really tune into just the energy without being worried about potentially getting kicked.
Yeah, so you feel there's less distraction for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it's very important to be in that meditative state. It's very important to drop in,
Yes.
so that you're not fighting the thought process and something. You're just sort of letting it come through you, because really it's not you, it's the energy you're facilitating.
Right.
And so the more you can clear and stay clear, the more the benefit that you can offer, I think.
Yeah.
The stronger the Reiki would feel or be.
Yeah, the clearer you keep your channel, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's very important.
And may I ask, and I don't want to over ask, but do you see things with your mind's eye when you're doing Reiki? Like, do you get, guidance of either where to place your hands, or, what to intuitively move to in a person or an animal? Is there, only if you're comfortable sharing, because I don't want to take anything too personally if it's your particular
Not at
method or
all.
way
I
of
think
working.
when we first started doing Reiki shares, and you would have someone on a table,
Right.
the first thing you do would be to scan them. You put your hands over top of them, and that's how I was trained. You just
Right.
do the scan, and that's how all the processes start. And you could definitely feel, it was very palpable to feel areas where there'd be warmth, areas where there'd be cold, just the areas that would draw you.
Yeah.
Right. And you'd say, oh, and then you could feel areas that might feel a little stuck or things. And then after time, you could feel that release, either through them or sometimes through like a little gastro and a bubble in your burp, or like, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I can feel this almost coming up in my throat. So you'd have to have a nice exhale.
Yep.
And so that started, with the training that way. But then once you start to do the distant Reiki, I think the same things become apparent. you can really notice either, I think it's more through heat and cold or tightness. I don't know if I really see things as much as just the feeling, those feelings.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes even in a yoga room, you're walking around as a teacher, you're walking around and everyone's doing whatever. Then someone just calls, or you just feel drawn to someone for whatever reason. Maybe just a tap on the shoulder, or just just stand next to them for a moment, and you can feel that maybe they've had some sort of release, that they had some energy that was moving out. But can always feel that. Do I necessarily see what caused that, or their personal experience that was related to that? No, I can't say that really. You might feel it, and I judge it by what part of the body it's in, or where it is.
Yep. And I think that's very, very true for yoga, and it's true across the board. But I definitely feel like, chakras are, I've done so many episodes and had so many questions, and we've got like deep dives on chakras, all you could fall into all the rabbit holes on that topic. But I think, yoga is kind of like the gateway, I think, to energy for people that are not necessarily in tune, I'll say, with it, or they're living in a very, this world 3D kind of environment. I think yoga, like you said, is the way to get you from your body into understanding there's a little bit more at play. And then as you start to open up to that, because it was the same for me. I was a yoga instructor since, I don't know, I'm sure you got certified probably before I did, but for me, it was 2011 that I got my yoga certification. And then Reiki was only back during COVID, actually, that I got my Reiki attunements. So I'm a little bit newer to the game, as it were. Not that it's a game, but but I definitely feel like, one definitely leads you in the direction of the other to a certain extent, if you find yourself there.
Absolutely. I think it just creates more sensitivity.
Yeah.
And a broader awareness of the lack, the lack of separateness, and the more feeling of connectedness. Absolutely. I know, I'm sure you, as a yoga teacher, you had a lesson plan. Okay, I've got this lesson plan. I'm going to teach this class. You walk into class, everybody's sitting there looking at you, and you're like, nope, that sure isn't what these people need today. And out the window it goes. And then at the end of class, invariably somebody says, gosh, that was just what I needed. And I'm like, well, yeah, you brought it. I had this other idea.
Yeah.
So, the tricksters.
It's so funny.
It really opens up more doors for connectedness and
absolutely. I used to have Post-its when I first got out of teacher training. I had Post-its, and I had in the tiniest handwriting every yoga pose I could fit in when a class that would have taken 4 hours to complete, because I was so type A. And I would walk into the room and like one person would be like, I have a hip injury. And I'd be like,
well, yep.
So no vision for you.
Yeah.
We're going to redirect. And then I was talking to the daughter of a friend of mine, and I was doing one of these podcasts, and it was like the night before I was supposed to record it. She was like, aren't you like, shouldn't you be preparing? Like, why aren't you like, and I was like, no. I was like, oh, grasshopper, you don't
such
understand.
A renegade.
I was like, it just, at a certain point, and it was literally through the yoga teacher training, and that lesson, the exact lesson that you just said, of just all the preparation in the world. And I also don't want to go the other way and say like, no, I'm never prepared. And no, I don't do things to prepare. But I think, I don't know how you teach, but I always practice little mini sequences in yoga, or little mini, things that go together. And then I think I've heard it kind of relate to me through people talking about jazz music, and how like jazz is improvised, but they're so attuned to the music. And I think for us, obviously it's not the same thing, but our bodies are instruments in a way, literally, especially with Reiki and with yoga. And so you have your own practice, and which poses organically fit together. And if you
Mhm.
have that and it's in you, then you become your own jazz improv solo in whatever class. So that practice is in there, that, whether it's the podcast, these conversations, the information, the years of study that you and I have poured into these different modalities, it's all in there. And then this conversation is our improv, is our flow, is our solo or our duet, if you will, for this intents and purpose. And I think that, she's a young girl, and it's like, you're gonna one day you're gonna get that. You're gonna get there. Like you'll understand. You'll have your own aha moment where you have to rip up your Post-it, and
That's great.
you
That's
too
a
will
really
rip up
nice
a
way to put
Post-it.
it. I'd like to use that metaphor as to music and jazz because you're
Yeah,
absolutely right what you're saying. And within a framework, within a certain, and everything, the harmonics all have to work. But to say that it's that there's a rote, I know there are some schools of yoga where there are set sequences.
right.
Um, that wasn't where I was. That isn't what called for me. Although, I mean, that's okay. Um, there's always that saying you can't step in the same river twice. So I mean, how many times are you going to do down dog? But every time you do it, it's a little bit different. But I try
Absolutely.
to stay away from the same sequencing because sometimes then there is anticipation in people's bodies as they get
Yep.
used to, like, I don't know whether you have a certain teacher and you're like, oh God, the teacher's so hard. But then after a while, you get used to how they teach and it's not as, and then you take somebody else's class and you're like, oh my gosh, so different because that anticipation and is gone.
Right.
You don't know what they're going to do. And so you really have to be attentive to what's going on.
Absolutely.
Pay
Absolutely.
attention.
And kind of keep you on your toes. And I will say, there are benefits, like, and vinyasa is such a fluid term. It covers all, manner of
Yeah.
sins. But, there are
Hmm.
different, the sun salutes are that, little mini
Hmm. Hmm.
organization
Hmm. Hmm.
of the postures. And I will say one of the things, because I was super into, like, when I would go to a class, it would always be a vinyasa class and like a slow flow. We're not talking like crazy aggressive, because I've gotten so many injuries from falling off horses, but it happens to the best of us, right?
Yep.
But I do what I really took from that was the ability in being the student, even though I was an instructor, was being able to shut the mind off because I knew the pose that was coming. I knew it was going to happen. I knew my body, that anticipation can also work as like a little mini
Hmm.
meditation in its
Hmm.
own right,
Hmm.
like a
Hmm.
physical meditation for your body. And I think that, like you said, there's benefits to all of it, right? That's just what calls to you, what doesn't call, and it can change over time. And it can change, like when I was first getting into practicing, I very much was into, you know, as aggressive a yoga environment as I could create, and I have a shoulder injury, and now I'm much more into, like, let's deepen into this pose and let's focus more on meditation and breathe. And it's just so funny how, as maybe, I don't know how much I've matured, but as you mature, as you deepen into the practice, you your trajectory shifts, or your priorities shift. Did you find that for yourself in your own kind of?
Well, clearly you're talking about a maturity of practice where, and I think you're right. Everybody started out doing um, a lot of sun salutes with a lot of up dog down, up dog down dog and back, and there were a lot of shoulders and rotator cuffs that definitely didn't make it through that period of time. Plus, there was a subtle aggression where you'd look over and somebody would be in some pretzel pose, and you're like, okay, I can force it, but the maturity of practice over time comes in and says, that's really not the end result here. And hopefully you find that before your injury and not after your injury. But that I think building more internal strength and internal flexibility, is much better. But yeah, the maturity of practice where it's okay to put that block underneath your arm and lift yourself up. And using a bolster is just a wonderful thing. We
It
are
is.
also grateful to BKS Iyengar for all of his things that he's offered us as far as props, so that the poses can be aligned more correctly without overstressing the body and sort of tightness or stiffness, or even in someone who's kind of new or coming back for an injury, they can be more loving to themselves and just move a little easier, but
Yeah,
still get the benefit of having a good alignment. So the
exactly. And
energy
alignment
moves better.
is absolutely key always. But I do think that, there's been a big theme for me recently about softening. And I think, yoga got that right, whatever, thousands of years ago, literally. But I think it's so hard for type A women, for, type A humans. I'm going to say women specifically just because of the room, reading the room. But, I think it's so hard. We have so much going on and we have so much to do. And there's so much that, there's a massive element, I think, depending on the area, depending on the studio, whatever. There's an element of competition, which is the opposite of what yoga is actually about. Literally, like competition is divisive. Yoga is about union. It's literally the opposite, but you see it. And I think that, it's one of those things where, part of that maturity of practice, which I love how you phrased that. So kudos and thank you for that.
It's yours now.
Well, it's everyone's, right? If
Yeah,
it's from your lips to whose ears, right? It's it's
exactly.
it's just so very much not about the competition. And the worst thing is when you compete with yourself. And I will say the most humbling experience for me has been all of my injuries, and has been like, okay, you know what? When I was 27 and I was in teacher training, and I'm gonna get my heels down in downward dog, and I'm gonna get through my
Mhm.
into that up dog, and I'm gonna muscle through this, and my shoulder stand's gonna be this, and at 40 whatever, many years and many injuries later, it's like neck injury, give me a block to put under my head because I can't do downward dog without it. And that's okay. And I see the girls in their 20s and I'm like, that's me. That was me. And I know I can see it in them. And I'm like, and I don't wish I don't wish neck injury on anybody, but it's like, you know what? Just like the young girl who said, why aren't you like writing down what you're going to say tomorrow? It's
Yep.
like one day you will understand the block is your friend. You're going to rip up your post-it note. You know what I mean? Like there are so many, like you're going to realize that you're just grateful to be on your mat, because maybe there was a time that you couldn't even do that. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't even do downward dog for months. So just being able to actually do downward facing dog, and that being such a huge moment where it used to be so easily taken for granted, and I just think that is again, a lot of times life happens, and you get to those realizations through maybe less than opportune circumstances, but maybe those circumstances are more opportune than you think they are in the moment that they occur, right?
Injuries can be great teachers, although you don't really want to court an injury
Of
just
course
for
not.
the learning experience. Hopefully, you learn it without that, but they can be great teachers and great reminders to slow it down and to soften it, and exactly muscling through. It's like arguing with a teenager. You're not
Yeah.
going to win. They're only going
No.
to fight you back. So why not just remove the wall and relax a little bit, and it does come through. And as I said, maturity of practice is exactly what it is, and I think that that's really what you try to keep learning
Yeah.
and keep going with that. It's pretty good that way. Back to sort of Reiki a little bit. I know whenever I go in to the studio and I go into the room that I'm teaching in, I always clear the room. Always clear the room, of any just energy at all. And then
Yep.
my Reiki symbols around, so my friends are there with me. And
Yep.
then, there's a lot of support.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be someone standing next to you. I mean, there's a lot of support and energetically um,
Absolutely.
for positive growth.
Yes. Yes. And so do you, when you, and again, just getting into, because we wanted, thank you for bringing me back from my digression. But is there,
Well, that's
I
just a
was,
nice way of like melding the two together. So, and
yeah, well,
there's a couple of times people have said, I don't, after COVID, I don't do as many assists as I used to do. I used to do a lot of hands-on assists.
of course, right.
I'm a little careful, or really ask first, if somebody,
Yeah.
and I keep it really light. I just think it's a change that has happened that it's sort of, and so that's it. But anyway, someone will say, well, how come you can do this touching, but it doesn't feel creepy? And I'm like, because it's just really the energy you're feeling the Reiki. Because it's
Yeah.
just no matter what you do with the positive intention, it's just going to go,
Yeah.
and
And so so do you open your channel every time you teach a yoga class?
pretty much, yeah, yeah. We
Really?
go in
See,
there
I
and
didn't.
just try. Well, you try and be available, and then when they're in shavasana, you kind of look around, and you sit in the room, and it's a palpable peacefulness. You can feel that, and you just try and offer everybody their highest good. When they come back, just say, to just go on each little person. I take a look at them, and then, like, just see them, and just offer them that.
Right,
Um,
right.
and whether or not they choose to receive it, it's theirs.
Right, right. And so so when I had, and if you'd like to mention where you were, or the style of Reiki that you were certified in, please feel free to do so. I've had one other Reiki practitioner on as well, and she was animal Reiki specific. And I don't want to say specific because she's attuned to work on all beings. But she had a very interesting way that she was taught, where she literally, there was a video of her kind of creating the energetic field, the Reiki in from her, in and around her, to create a large field where animals around her were able to walk in and out of it and then choose to lie down. There was a video, very, very, very
That's
cool,
cool.
where all the animals in this paddock actually laid down around her. It was beautiful. Beautiful. Her name is Jackie Smith. You may know her from town, but so she is super, super cool, and she did this very specific, and it was an animal led Reiki certification that she did, but it was not, the way that I was attuned and instructed was, that you're, like, as you said, you're the channel, the energy is moving through you, you're directing, in theory, with your hands. And since kind of talking with her, I've started just on my own to practice this, you know, bringing, like, for clearing purposes, bringing the energy from my heart space, out of me, just with intention and meditation, into, around me, bigger, into my home, into my yoga studio. So I'm just curious, when if you don't mind sharing, when you clear your yoga studio, or when you clear a space, or you clear, your own field, how do you visualize it, or how do you achieve it? Do you think violet flame, or is there a method that you use or what, may you share your Reiki secret if you're comfortable
No,
doing so?
there's no secrets. I was Usui, Dr. Usui. It was Lee Rand who was the author of the workbook that we used. So it
Okay.
was Usui Reiki, regular Reiki, and the teacher that I had's lineage goes back to Mrs. Tadaka, and I have the whole lineage chart and everything like that. And so that was pretty much, we used symbols, you used your energetic field, you can expand from the center out, absolutely. At first, when we were doing it, there was more of it was just, again, more um, as just growth that you get, kind of maturity, even in the Reiki. When you start out, you think, oh, it's beaming, the beaming light. It's coming from my hands. It's beaming. I'm beaming it through my hands. And if I don't feel the heat or whatever, oh my gosh, am I beaming it right? You're always worried about yourself. Uh, and then over time, you feel that the field is more general around you, and that then let me see, I did Reiki. I did my first Reiki in 2012, and I think it was about 2015 I did my master's. But then 2 years ago, we did another style of Reiki Master through Lee Rand, and it was called Holy Fire. And the
Yes.
Holy Fire was interesting in that even the attunements that you didn't need to lay hands, you didn't need to use the violet breath. It was more of a direct transmission, so that the Reiki master that was attuning you really stepped back and away and allowed you to it just to flow into you. So it got more, it got more generalized, and just like what you're talking about, where the field broadened.
Yeah.
So really, just even an intention and a focused intention um, is great. It works really just the same. I think it's as long as you're in a kind of a quiet meditative state. And I still always like for me, I always like the symbols because they're fun.
Yeah.
And it's something tangible.
Yep.
Sometimes we like that tangibility.
Yep.
They're not necessary. When I go into a room, I always clear it. I put the symbols all around. They're all there. My friends are there, but it's not necessary. I mean, you can bring it in without that. I think that's as I said, again, maturity in how you view that and how you view the energy. And I always wondered, like with Reiki, how is Reiki different than, say, Shinjin Jitsu or other modalities that are healing modalities? And my Reiki masters just said, you think about like a wire, and a wire is many threads of wire that are all sort of woven together that are conduits of energy from one place to another, electrical energy. And she said, Reiki is just sort of one of those wires. It's one connection, one style of connection. Lots of different ones.
Yeah.
The reason why I love it so much is that there's no real downside to it. It's just only can do good. It only offers healing.
Yeah.
Whether the person wants to, and again, no matter where you are, I mean, if the person just wants to reject it, they can. You need that, even though you're a participant, everyone needs to be a participant. You can't just run in and say, "Oh, I see you've got a problem. Here I am." This is,
Can't
no,
force Reiki anybody.
there has to be some sort of a dialogue, a conversation back and forth of what they want, what they're looking for, and some participation on their part.
Yeah.
Animals much different. I mean, I think they're just always willing to go. Not a lot of resistance there.
I will say my my gentle souled Abernathy. He was my my Reiki dummy when I was practicing.
Gosh,
and he was so resistant. He was like, with it was the cutest thing. I kind of had him in like a little teddy bear hold, and I was kind of like giving him Reiki, and he was just kind of throwing his head. I have a corgi, and she knows my corgi, for those of you. My naughty
That's
corgi.
so funny.
And he kind of let me do it. He's stubborn anyway, as the breed is. But what was so funny was after he conked out on the floor like a little pancake for about 45 minutes to an hour. I was like, so see, you liked it. You just had to get through. You just had to get through the process first.
I'm sure when you're doing, if you're ever doing yoga at somebody's house and they've got their dog, or even if you're doing a Zoom, like even now, I mean, your dogs would be sitting right next to you right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the same thing, we do hybrid classes where I teach yoga. And so and people in the room, people on Zoom, and I'll look up occasionally onto the screen, and there's the dog or the cat, with the person doing whatever they're doing. And they just have that feeling. They can really pick up on it.
Absolutely.
It's good. And it's interesting what you say about like the animals and just how they are drawn to the vibration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll even say my not the horse, though, well, they both had injuries, but Axel, my retired horse, he's a little like he let me do it, but he kind of like gets puffy chested and backs up, and it's like, what are you doing? What's this? And then I'll be like, eat your hay. And then he's like, okay. And then I can do, as long as he can be preoccupied, then he's fine. And then he kind of settles into it. Whereas, I think like horses, all animals, just like us, they all have their personalities. They all have their quirks. May I ask, have you ever done Reiki on Lil?
Oh
on
yeah,
your
well, Lily,
dog?
yeah. Oh, of course on Lily.
Does
Lily's,
she?
but sometimes she just gets up and walks away and then lays down someplace else. Sometimes it's a little intense on dogs,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the one Saheki symbol, that's the one to use on animals. So sometimes I'll do that, but um, my daughter just adopted a dog who was 5 years old, who was from Korea, and he's rescued and had a past that nobody knows what the past was,
Right.
and he was having some anxiety. And strangely enough, through the rescue, Korean rescue, there was a Reiki practitioner who was offering Reiki for people who had adopted the dogs. And
Oh, I love that.
she does it distant, just like
Yep.
this. She asks about the dog, looks at a picture of the dog, and then they zoom in, and it's been great. And he just like falls asleep afterwards and chills down, and it seems to be been very effective for him. And she hasn't been, as I said, like as far as being foretelling or anything. She doesn't know exactly where the anxiety, I mean, she knows where it is in his body and
Right.
how to release it, but she tell the exact incident? No, not necessarily. Because I
Yeah.
asked about that. It's more about where in the body is the energy stuck, and then they work to release that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that they're doing that. It just, as a rescue, I think that's very
It's amazing. It's
progressive on their
Korean
part. I
rescue,
think
so
it's,
they have
yeah, they,
uh,
yeah, they're
sort of
kind of leaning in that
yeah,
direction, I would
yeah,
imagine. But
yeah.
that's wonderful, and I'm glad that it's helping. And I'll say, it's very because Angus, the other my other dog,
Oh, sweet.
I'll do Reiki on myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I'll a lot of times in the morning before I get out of bed, I'll do a little like self
Oh
Reiki,
yeah, yeah.
and he'll come. He's generally somewhere on top of me anyway, but he'll come and just like lay right in my field as I do it, whereas Abernathy is kind of on the other side of the bed. So I do think like, their personalities and how much they're into it, but he really seems to enjoy like and want to be included in that energy field. Whereas, the Korean like so Abernathy and Lily share a lot I common. I think I
They're
think that
very,
they're
very
very
common. Yeah, she'll just get
detached.
up and
Yes.
walk away because that's just her. It's like, "Arr." But that's okay. That's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's their choice. It's their choice. It's their choice. And the other thing that I did experience, and I do think that even because you're always supposed to have permission when you perform Reiki on even
Mhm.
animal, whether it's the quote unquote owner, I don't like the word owner, the handler of
Yeah,
the animal or whatever
yeah.
gives you permission, and then you can kind of energetically ask permission of the animal, and generally you get an intuitive hit to it that it's appreciated. Or if it's Lily or Abernathy, they say no or walk away.
Yeah.
But I did, I've had a human interaction where even though I was given permission, what I thought as I was kind of tapping in was because I'm bringing this up because we touched on it briefly. I thought it was like an energetic. I literally got like the vision, the feeling of static, like a television screen back in the day that was just like that black and white fuzzy. And at the time I thought it was like a blockage or something, but I actually, as we're talking about, I actually wonder if even though they gave permission, potentially maybe they were refusing to allow the energy because it was the
Well,
only time I've ever experienced literal like static, and that's the best word that I can describe, where I was trying to clear it and
interference.
it wasn't. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think too that when you are a healer, you see, you can feel it, you can see it. You're standing next to the person, like, oh my God, and I want to help you. But you know what? Sometimes it's part of their journey
Mhm.
to figure it out in a different way. It's until they come to you and say, "I'm ready." You know that's the way it has to be. And you can go. My Reiki master used to work at the hospital at Morristown Memorial. And she would say I would go in and I clear these people and they'd be great, and then they wouldn't change their behaviors or habits, and they'd come back the next week and I'd clear them and they'd be great, and then they'd come
Mhm.
back. So unless you really want to actively participate in change, and healing, you know, the
Talk about
process is
maturity of
good. You know, you do
practice.
everything you can, and you hope that each time that they've gone around the spiral and they're a little bit higher, and they've gone around the
Yeah.
spiral and they're a little bit higher until all of a sudden that aha moment comes. But as far as individuals, sometimes it's just their path where they're at, that they're just
Yeah.
a little bit resistant, and for whatever reason, might be fear, usually.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear or yeah, whatever,
They've
again,
held it
like you
for so
said,
long.
their path, right? And you can, you can guide them, you can help them but at the end of the day, I'm going to use that really trite lead a horse to water,
Yeah.
right?
Well, perfect for today.
Right, perfect for today. Perfect for today. So the final thing is because I like I said, we were talking about like spring cleaning, energetic clearing. Is there anything? I guess two questions. Do you ever use any other sage crystals, any of the any of those things, Palo Santo, to clear the space, clear your energy before or after a client, or clear, obviously you're not probably going to burn sage in a yoga studio, but
Well, we have a
sometimes.
smudge stick there, and then we have some lovely incense that's sage-based. But when last week, someone comes in and they are, coughing because the
Yep.
incense is bothering them. You have a lot of sensitivities now. Like back
Right.
in the old days, I mean, my God, they'd be so thick with incense burning. You'd be like going in the room and have to clear your way. Um, Crystals, absolutely. Oh yeah, got a lot of crystals. And you find that I don't I have a lot of friends and people that I've worked with, and they have such a great knowledge of crystals. I don't have this huge great knowledge of crystals, but I do find that amethyst and quartz, just as go-tos,
Yeah.
you can clear them really easily. You put them in a sunlight window or out in the full moon or whatever, and then that you can program them really easy. They're very easy to work with. So whatever you want to do, you want to bring with you, whatever intention you want to have there, they're very supportive that way. And they're easy. And I don't know, as I said, there's so many different ones, and you can
Right.
go down the list and say which is specific to which particular issue. My daughter likes to have her shungite with her all the time because she
Yep.
works a lot with her computer, and she's always got her earbuds in. So the electromagnetic energy, she feels just, she needs to clear it. So she's always got a little shungite bracelet, and um, which is good. But
Yeah.
if you just do nothing more than quartz and amethyst, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
They're good
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
They're just
They
always
go.
there.
Yeah. They're always there. And the only one that I'll throw in on top of that, and not really on top, because I believe it is. I shouldn't say that, but I believe it is a form of quartz. Is selenite.
So I was going to say
Selenite.
yes. So I knew that was coming. Selenite.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got it right
selenite.
there.
It's like I have a giant one over the door of my yoga studio. I have a giant one over the door of my bedroom. You know what I mean? Like you're not you're not
Well,
coming in here
a funny
today.
story, which I'll tell you that I don't want to hold you up, but
No, never.
we go to horse shows. Go with my daughter to the horse shows. When we go to Lake Placid to the horse show last year, and we're staying in a hotel. And so I had this nice piece of shungite, right? And I stuck it in my bag. And we get to the hotel, and she's in the bathroom, and I'm setting up the hotel. And it's strangely enough, we had gotten an upgrade. I don't know how it was. They were like, "Oh, you have an upgrade to a better room." So, and
Nice.
right between the two queen beds is the table, and I put the shungite right there. And she goes out of the shower. She goes, "Does the upgrade include crystals too?" She's like, "It's sort of thought that maybe the Hampton Inn offered crystals as well in their
Crystal healing.
upgrades."
Yeah.
I was like, "No," and I brought that. And then it just got to be funny. Every time we go away, there would be that
There it
shungite
is.
right there on the table between us. So, it's a fun. It is. That's another. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry, I forgot that,
Yeah.
but I'm glad you
Yeah,
brought that
no,
up.
no, don't apologize. It's just it's a good one because it also clears other crystals. That's why, like, if you're gonna
Hmm. Hmm.
for the amethyst, for selenite is just, it's a big old, you can get them big or small, but the big old wand, I've seen people literally just having a bad day, just lay down with a piece of selenite. You're
And it's
just
not
like,
expensive, so it doesn't break the bank to
no,
get a nice
no.
piece. And yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and it kind of does all the things. But yeah, between the sage and the Palo Santo and just because a lot of times when people that are listening to us may not be Reiki masters or Reiki practitioners, so we can't offer them potentially unless they can go to their qualified local or one of us, because we could do it distance Reiki practitioners. ways to clear out your space to protect your energy once you've cleared your energy, and just making sure that you stay clear. And I think, even if we're not Reiki, I think maybe you have a better idea, but I think setting the intention, right? Like speaking, I clear my energy, call upon angels, whatever it is that you may believe in, clear your energy. If you have access to sage, you can sage yourself, you can sage your space, you can sage your room, Palo Santo. They have sprays too if you're allergic to smoke or sensitive, as you mentioned. Have some selenite or some amethyst or some clear quartz. And is there any other things for people that may not be Reiki practitioners that
you could
they
really
can
just, and it's one of the techniques for Reiki, is you just take your hands, just sort of start at your chest and just sort of swipe down, and then the other one down like 3 times, one
Yep.
on each side, left and right hand, 3 times, and it just as if you were sweeping yourself clean, just doing
Yep.
that. And an intention. You think about like a beautiful rose, a gold rose above your head that's going to come down through your aura and clean everything out, and then you just let it go. And there's all sorts of different techniques for doing that. But it is always important, because no matter where you are, stuff sticks, and you want to make sure that you are as clear and as if you have a window and you're trying to look through it and it's dirty, it's distorted, and you want as least distortion as you can. So you just keep clear in the mirror and keep wiping it clean, any way you can. But just the intention is good. Any way that works for you, where you can see yourself refreshed.
Yeah. And I know, even just to throw in, because of course the yoga, the Ayurveda suggests taking showers at the end of the day. And I think water is another, like, just for basic human cleanliness, like, right, like just for your body.
Absolutely.
But also in the shower, I've tried to instill in myself this habit. Sometimes I shower twice a day, but at least in my morning shower, of literally saying like an energy cleansing intention prayer, whatever you want to call it, as I'm showering, and just reinforcing that as like a little mini meditation to have this water like rinse all of the debris, negative energy, whatever, anything that doesn't belong to me off of my body, out of my auric field, let it go down the drain, be transmuted, and return to Mother Earth for her own healing and highest good, right? You know what I mean? Just
exactly.
Something as little
Perfect.
as that, beginning and end of your day, or whenever you happen to shower, and just kind of get into that habit of, remember, healing's not linear, it's cyclical, right? Like you said, watching the spiral go up. I loved when you said that, because it's true. Like, you can't blame yourself when you circle back around to that problem again. Maybe you still
you're
have
never
some more
back there where
clearing.
you were. You're always a little
Right.
bit more
A little
understanding.
bit, exactly, a little bit higher up. So,
Yeah.
as
I remember
we,
if one of the images when we were doing Reiki in the beginning, they said it was sort of like a shower, just sort of showering down on you. Just exactly what you're saying. It brought me back to that, and it was a great image of just being washed clean.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, intention setting, you can, if you really feel like you're having a bad day, you can break out the crystals and the sage, but even just water, or using your own hands to wipe away, and setting that intention to clear your energy, and even set an intention to, protect your auric field and your,
just going out in nature
space.
too. It's another
Always.
Beautiful thing. I mean, we happen to live in one of the most lovely places ever. And it's just, nice to go out and let the wind blow in your face and the sun shine down on you. And those things are just natural healers.
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And being with your horses,
being with your horses,
being with your animals.
Yep. Animals are healing. Yeah, we are very blessed. We are very, very blessed. But I think, it's wonderful that, you and I have so many of these things in common, and that we can share the fact that we're blessed. We can give that positive, good energy out to the world around us. And I think that that's what it's all about. Is working from the small, very blessed little corner of your existence. And if we all do that, right, that's how the world becomes a better place, right?
Yep.
If we just take a little bit of responsibility for bringing the light, or being the light in our own little slice of the world, and watch the whole world light up.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a nice way of saying that. Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to leave our listeners with before we kind of wrap up the healing and the healing session that we've just had? I feel like it was a healing session. I know it was meant to be really a conversation, but I felt like it was wonderful.
Just like, everybody, enlightenment we'll have it all. I mean, you'll have it, you don't have to struggle. Your path is there, and you'll find your way. I think we all will. And just be nice and be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the nicest thing about it. And just what you were saying, less maturity of practice. It's really good. And just how you view yourself in all things and in your relationships with other people, because they're going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to that end, to that point, remember, well, I
They
won't say
don't
remember,
have yoga and they don't have Reiki. So some of them, and you feel like, oh, how could I even exist without them?
right. And how, look at, like you said, maturity of practice, where you came from, where we were to where, we are now, and, where we will be, and, how many people we can inspire and bring with us on our way, and, touch the lives, hopefully in a positive way. And, and be that light. And I just, this has been coming up a lot for me, but that even the people that you are interacting with are a reflection of yourself. So that love that you give to that person all starts by giving that love to yourself first. And the more you love yourself, the more that you will invite that reflection of love back to you. And so I think that that's, super, super important, because no one's going to love you as much as you, except for your mom.
Except for your mom. Well, it's so nice of you, and thank you for doing this wonderful podcast and sharing your great perspective, because it's very holistic.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for being, a neighbor mentor and an amazing, one of my favorite humans, one of my favorite ladies
thank
and
you.
women.
Well, the feeling's mutual.
Thank you so much. And for anyone who happens to find themselves in the tri-state area or on Zoom, apparently they could zoom in. Sandy teaches at Glow Yoga in Basking Ridge, and has been there for quite some time now, and will continue to be there.
Yes.
And also is available for Reiki, and I'm sure that they can probably get in touch with you via the studio if they look them up.
Yes, absolutely.
On the interwebs, on the Google. And thank you so much, Sandy, for joining me today and for sharing your wisdom and your grace and all the wonderful things about you, and Lily too.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you, Gia. You are a goddess.
Oh, so are you. 100%. 100%. And I just want to say that I appreciate Sandy and each and every one of our listeners for sharing your space with me today. And so please feel free to share the same with your loved ones. For more goodness, follow me on all the socials at Above the Ground Podcast, or visit my website, airsAboveYoga.com. And as always, please check out my other episodes and all of my amazing sisters at Divas That Care Network. You can find us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple, or anywhere else that you may feel guided. Again, my name is Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground Podcast, where every day is a good one.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.